Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. 8 fragrances that smell like money. And I'm not kidding about this. Honest to God, there are 4 fragrances, and I have talked about them all as having this trait. When I first smell them, they immediately make me think, I feel it in my gut. They immediately make me think of money, wealth, and abundance. It's a bizarre thing. I remember the first time I smelled Ombre Nomade, which, by the way, is not on this list. But I remember the first time I smelled it, I remember thinking, was I in Toronto recently? Did I go to Holt Renfrew? That's like a really high-end store in Toronto. Because it reminded me of that whole sort of wealthy aesthetic. It was kind of scary. And I thought, no, I haven't been there in a long time. And I thought maybe Holt Renfrew might have sprayed some of the clothes with the fragrance because the association was so strong. So yeah, some fragrances on this list. There are 3 that have an immediate gut reaction to me. And then there are the rest of the fragrances, not so much a gut reaction, but there are some where I smelled them and I remember thinking, oh, this must be what rich people wear because they smell very classy and sophisticated. So intellectually, they smell like rich people, what they would wear. And yeah, so those different kinds of wealth fragrances, but basically we're talking about fragrances that smell like cash. Fragrance number 1, this is Jorum Parfums, and this was a gut punch. This was immediately, it smelled like wealth. It smelled like high quality. It smelled like money. And as soon as I smelled it, I'm like, okay, I understand why I had to wait 2.5 years to get it because you just couldn't back then. And then I understood, why it was so hyped and so many people were talking about it because it really is high end. I think there are 2 facets here, though, that make it, that explain why it is so high end. Number 1, this has oud and this also has leather. And I think both the leather and the oud in this are of very high quality, which is what you do not normally get in a designer fragrance. Leather is a main note. Iris is a main note, and those are the first 2 things you're going to pick up, the nice powdery iris. The second main feature of this fragrance is the ambrette. There are not so many houses that use it. Dior uses it a lot, but what it is it's a mildly sweet seed that has a creamy quality, and the ambrette is what gives the iris feel in here lipsticky, because you combine the powdery lipstick with the creamy ambrette, and then you get the lipstick element of the iris. And then you get the woody, the powdery sandalwood and the cedar. And then you get the oud component. And I think there's probably real oud in this, but it's oud, rose, and orange, which is a nice contrast to the oud. So 4 different main facets, all blended beautifully. You can get different ones at different times. Great performance as well. Yeah, money. Fragrance number 2, this is Ani by Nishane, and I wish all vanilla fragrances were like this one. This is like a high-end niche fragrance brand and a high-end niche fragrance. You're going to get vanilla and ginger mostly. That's what you're going to pick up most of all, but there's more to it than that. This also has a warm, spicy component. The spiciness comes from the cardamom and the black pepper, and the warmth comes from ambergris and benzoin. So, again, 3 different facets. You get a lot of ginger, a lot of warm spiciness, and then you get the vanilla all blended together really nicely. If a wealthy person is going to wear a vanilla fragrance, it's going to be something like this. Fragrance number 3, Prada L'Homme. This is one of the very first fragrances that I ever purchased. This was my first iris fragrance. And I still remember it because it was probably more than any other fragrance this one surprised me, because at the time, Jeremy Fragrance was pushing this as a soapy, clean office fragrance. I mean, I guess it is kind of like that, but that's not really what I got from it when I first tried it, nor is what I get from it today. So when I smelled the iris here, my first iris, immediately I thought, oh, that smells really sophisticated, really high end. That's what rich people wear. To this day, I have that association with iris. To me, iris, the more powdery, the more wealthy it smells, the more sophisticated it is. But again, using my imagination, I don't get the initial gut punch that I do with some of the others. But, I guess I can sort of understand why people say clean and soapy, because yes, there are a lot of fresh notes in here. There's black pepper, and then there are 3 fresh florals. There's geranium, neroli, and violet. So yes, it definitely has a fresh quality. Another thing that surprised me about it, though, was the amber. Like I didn't think amber was going to be in this, because when I think of soap, I think of bar soap. I don't think of any kind of sweetness, but this has a lot of amber in it. At least you notice it after a while. It sort of rises. So yeah, I mean, it was a big surprise, but I will always think of this as a fragrance that rich people wear. Fragrance number 4, this is L'Instant de Guerlain Eau de Toilette, and this fragrance has a direct association with a wealthy individual. Actually, as does Jorum Parfums, because I first heard about them or got excited about them when I was watching Sebastian, the perfume guy, who is kind of like Fragcom's niche expert. That's what I sort of think of him as. He has a couple of thousand niche fragrances. He has a closet. He's always flying to Paris or Milan or someplace in Europe. So yeah, he certainly appears to be quite a wealthy individual. And the very first time I got excited about Jorum Parfum, I made a mental note that he said that that was the nicest fragrance he had tried. And then when it comes to this one, the original L'Instant de Guerlain, not this particular eau de toilette, but the extreme version from back in the day, he was in a cab. He smelled it on a cabbie. He found out what he was, went and bought it, and that was the first fragrance that he said that really got him into collecting. Now, when I heard that, I had this within the week. Now, this is the eau de toilette, which is slightly different than the eau de parfum version, the extreme version, because that is more chocolatey, whereas this is more citrusy. And that's kind of what they're going for, right? A citrus chocolate kind of thing. So lemon and bergamot, the lemon is really nice here. You get a lot of lemon here. And then you do get that chocolatey element with the combining cacao and patchouli, which gives it a chocolatey feel. Ultimately, I know this is the eau de toilette. I had to have the L'Instant de Guerlain DNA in my collection. Fragrance number 6 is Afnan Supremacy in Heaven, and I apologize, this is a clone, but what this is a clone of is Silver Mountain Water, and that DNA to me is like the most high-end, sophisticated woody citrus that you're going to get. And, you know, if you look at the notes, that's essentially what it is. It's like a woody citrus plus. So there's a couple of woody notes in the base. You got mandarin and bergamot off the top, but it's the heart of this fragrance that makes it special. So you get tea and musk, and that is a soothing component that a bunch of other fragrances stole right after Creed. I don't know if anybody else stole the whole Creed DNA, but they took that combo. I know Azzaro did it, and I know a couple of other houses did it. They took that combo because it really works. And you have that, and then you add a bit of black currant to it, and it makes it a little bit fruitier than your standard woody citrus. But I really do have to get a bottle of Silver Mountain Water, however. This is quite a good clone. It gives me about 6 hours, and the projection's good. But, oh, my God, that DNA, I don't know, man. Well, I mean, it is a Creed after all. It really does smell high-end. Number 5, this is Polo Green by Ralph Lauren, and this was a hardcore gut punch. This was the very first time that I had a visceral emotional reaction to a fragrance. I had seen the bottle, right? This was the very first, this was like 5 years ago, the very first time that I made a fragrance haul where I purchased a number of fragrances. I had no idea what this smelled like. I just recognized the bottle. As soon as I smelled it, I knew I had smelled it before, but it smelled like money. It smelled like wealth. It smelled like power. And the weird thing about it is I've seen a lot of younger YouTubers talking about this smelling like grandpa. And my associations, I'm not a grandpa, by the way. I'm not. I'm probably old enough in some cases, but I'm not a grandpa. But yeah, anyway, this to me, it smells like money. It smells like a lot of money. I mean, I think that's what they were going for. I mean, green, right? And gold. I mean, it is meant to smell like wealth. I really think it does. I think it's the pine. I think the pine, it's probably the best use of pine in any fragrance ever. That's what I get the most here. There are a lot of notes in this thing. Honest to God, there are tons. But yes, pine. And then the next note that I pick up the most is the tobacco. I get that more in the dry down. I really don't know what's going on in the open. The opening is the one that really moves me. There is some leather and oak moss in it as well. I don't think this one smells old in any way, though. Fragrance number 7. This is Dior Homme 2020, and this was a gut punch. This was such a complicated reaction when I smelled this for the first time, because at the time everybody was flipping out over the fact that it didn't have iris. Now, I knew it didn't have iris, and I was still expecting to be disappointed. But as soon as I smelled this, I'm like, what is this fascinating thing that they've created? I did not care that there was no iris. I thought this was special right from the get-go. Kind of a woody citrus. It's got 4 woody notes. 2 of them are aroma chemicals, isoe super, but cashmerean plays a big role here. This is a musky woody note, and then there's also some musk. So there's a musky quality, and then the fresh quality, it's not just citrus. It is bergamot, but there's also elemi, which plays a rather large role, and pink pepper to provide the freshness. Whatever it does, it just smells so elegant, so classy, so high-end. And yeah, it smells like money. Finally, we have Lattafa Liam, and this is a clone of Gris Charnel. And my God, especially the first hour here. This to me smells like what rich people would wear, and I'm not surprised at all. As soon as I smelled this, I wasn't surprised by the huge popularity of Gris Charnel. I was just surprised at how late it came, because it didn't get popular for 2 or 3 years, and then it kind of blew up. But what I like about this is the creaminess of it, and you especially get the creaminess early on. So there is some vanilla here, and you combine that vanilla with the powderiness of both iris and sandalwood, and it just gives it a creamy feel, and it's super nice. After about an hour, maybe 45 minutes, the spicy element, which is like the fig, the tea, and the cardamom, especially the tea and the cardamom, that starts to rise. I don't like it as much as that point. It's still a good fragrance, but I prefer the creamy early part, because to me, that's the part that smells like money, that smells really wealthy. One way or another, these guys all smell like money, like moolah. Thanks for watching.